But in that, I want to just focus on her because this is many years of conception. This whole language is about birthing. The whole language is about the stewardship of rearing what is truly sovereign as a government. We are governed by a lesser form until we're given a greater. And so this is allowing us to move into an establishment of a greater potential. And so for in that, personally for me, for the due diligence of what Carrie has done, because it is a self-discipline, it's a self-order, and how I stewarded, how she has stewarded has truly been a treasure to me, and I recognize it as a gift in her. And so I just want to acknowledge that she has conceived something, she has begotten something, and now she is birthing something. So tada rabba.
Thank you. It makes me want to cry. Way to go, Ken. Tears right before we start. That's always interesting. So from my perspective, this has been a long time coming. And 2.5 years ago, when we started our YouTube channel, it was my desire to teach the languages because I had seen in my own personal growth and development just what they did for me. And for some of you who don't know me that well and don't know my story and my history on this, and I don't mind sharing this, I don't mind being transparent about it because I can come from an objective place now when I speak about it, whereas before I was a little too emotional still. But before we really started diving into the sacred languages, I was dealing with some pretty severe trauma still in my life from my childhood, and most of us have. I'm not saying that I'm anybody special. There are a lot of us that have celebrated our lives and coming through having survived trauma. But I was in a place where it was still a little out of control for me. And I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a situation where emotions will just overwhelm you. You'll get triggered with something and you can't quite put your finger on it. It's not like PTSD where there's an incident that, like a car accident or something, that you can point the finger to. No, this was like a whole host of many years, and it would just overwhelm me. And the outcome of that was like, well, you're going to have to live with it. You have to mitigate it, and medication can help. And I knew that there was another way. I knew there was another way. I wasn't going to go that route. And I also discovered that I was dealing with dissociative identity disorder. I had multiple personalities, which was a survival technique that happened from fracturing from when I was a younger individual. And I had learned to seamlessly transition in and out of my altars depending on the situation, so much so that I even fooled myself, if that's even possible, but it was. And I'm sharing this with all of you because the healing, 30 years in the Christian Bible, in the English narrative, and through much prayer and much fasting, laying on of hands, sozo, you name it, did not heal me. Sometimes it would put on temporary bandages, but it never really truly set me free from those encumbrances that I carried. When I started studying the sacred languages, life got worse. So I'm kind of putting a warning out there for those of you who are just entering in. And the reason why I say that is because they are so full of light and they are so full of love that whatever shadow that has not been dealt with, whenever a revelation comes in, a corresponding shadow will be revealed. And for me, I'm very, very grateful that it happened, but it's like my life fell apart, like all instantaneous. It was like I was compressing light, studying the letters, breaking down verses, and then a freak storm happened. And in 1 week, the bottom fell out of my life. And I remember, I'm so grateful. I have like tears that are starting to well up just from gratitude. I'm so grateful that I'm on the other side of this, but it was very scary because I remember when it happened, when I entered into my dark night of the soul, which was a 5-year process. It was not just a single night. It was 5 years to undo and work through those things. I remember my husband looking at me and saying, is this our new normal? Is this going to be our new normal? And I honestly could not answer him. I said, I don't know. And I literally felt that I was going to have to potentially be put away. I mean, literally in an insane asylum, because everything was just all over the place. But the one constant that I had was the sacred languages. The one constant that I had was the spirit working through the sacred languages to source creator that was helping me through it. And little by little, word by word, verse by verse, more light came in, more shadows got transmuted. And after my 5-year journey, I was able to overcome complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't have it anymore. And I was able to integrate all of my fractured little egos that had been doing their job trying to protect me, and now they're all unified. So I just want to say that as a halava testimony moment, as to one of the main reasons why I wanted to share this with other people. I mean, for those of you who haven't watched the 10-part introduction series, I'm going to have Rick speak about that here before we start the letters. But all of this in the introduction goes to the why. So what I did right now is I just shared with you my testimony of my healing that came from studying the letters. And then the 10-part series that we just finished up, the introduction, is the other part of the why that goes through a whole bunch of other reasons with quantum mechanics, Dr. Emoto's work, matrix, all kinds of stuff. And so I'm going to ask Rick here, if you don't mind sharing your thoughts about the introduction series and what the purpose would be for that. If you don't mind sharing, I would love that.
Yeah, I thought the introduction series that you laid out was just phenomenal. You not only clearly showed out or laid out your why, but you helped fill in, for me, all the gaps into where this language fits, how it fits, and what it does, and the vibration, the tone of it, and why it's important to even know. I mean, I was impressed with each of the videos, and I know if anybody here hasn't watched them, I would highly recommend watching those videos that she laid out, because she clearly spells out, what this is all about and why to learn the languages. And then a few months ago, I had a chance to meet Ken and Carrie in person in Crestone, Colorado, and hang out with them. And each morning I would tend to go to their place and have coffee. And I could see the passion that they have for these letters and this language is absolutely as real as what she lays out here. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. The character of these two people is absolutely wonderful. I love them dearly. I love them with all my heart. I love this family. And I just know that Carrie's going to do real well. And then one other thing, I watched a lot of the YouTube videos on these languages and all this. And some people present it really well, but nothing like Carrie. I'm so excited, not to put pressure on her, but I'm so excited to be here today when she's starting to lay out the teachings of these letters. So thanks, Carrie.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. Thank you for all of your beautiful words that you just shared. Yeah, no pressure. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a difference. I've heard people share it too, and that's why I love her expression. And thank you for those words of affirmation that there is something different about this language that you cherish and you start to guard, and the realization of what it does in the intimacy. When you start, I've never really felt, we say words, but I've never felt what I feel when you encounter something and then you realize it's yourself.
Right.
And then in that expression, you're able to share this with another person, and you're able to speak the connection to bring healing. Like, it's more than just reading it and then writing it on a piece of paper. It's tangibly being felt through the essence of your being that's translating us one letter at a time into the greater translation. And that's when we're in a whole nother government. And so I know that's her passion. So I know when you speak, I just want to set that parameter that this is going to the essence. And so a lot of people get intimidated when we start speaking about making love and the intimacy, what it is, because here we go, right? No, this is nothing of unclean. This is sanctuary of sacred. It's the restoration of truly sound holiness within our sanctum of self and wellness.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you very much for your love and your support, and everyone here. Thank you for the support, the energetic exchange that you are providing as we share these teachings with you guys. I do want to start out giving you a vision of something that I was given years ago, and I didn't realize what it was. And the fruition of it is happening today. And that's what's so exciting to me. I was in a room that was, I was in a corner, and it was glass. There was windows on both sides, and I was on like a birthing table. And I was very, very pregnant, like overdue pregnant. And I was absolutely 100% miserable. Now, side note here, I've never had natural children, but I am telling you, in this dream, I experienced it. So I may not have had children in this life, but in this dream, in this what I experienced, I have a lot of respect for those ladies that are here that have actually gone through the birthing process, because it was miserable. It was absolutely miserable. And there was a messenger, I'm going to call him a messenger, but at the time when the vision was given to me, all I had was the terminology as an angel. But it was like a messenger midwife kind of thing. And she was standing next to me. And I just remember that I was fully in labor. I had the view that I had was above trees, and there was clouds. I mean, it was lifted high up, and I didn't understand what that was. I do now, because the Aramaic language, literally Aramic, arum means elevated, to lift up. But I had no idea, because I wasn't even studying the languages. It was roughly about the same time that those of you who have been hanging out, and I shared with you the mountain vision, what happened and manifested in Crestone. It was around the same time that these visions happened. So very close to one another, but again, had no process of it. I was laying there, I was miserable, and there was a whole bunch of people that were waiting for this birth to begin. And this makes sense now. This so much makes sense now. Because for 2.5 years on the YouTube channel, I've been talking about teaching the language, and it took me 2.5 years to get to this day. But they had been waiting, and they had been waiting, and they'd been waiting, and all of them turned away. And they were watching television. They were watching something else to entertain them in the room. And all of a sudden, this messenger, this entity that was helping with the labor process, began to push on my belly. And she said, "It's time." And as she said it was time, and she began to push on my belly, it was a very quick birth. I mean, it was like a really long pregnancy, and it was long overdue. I was probably 11 months long. I don't know. I don't know how long a baby can stand there, but I was way overdue. And as she pushed, the birthing process happened very quickly. And when the child was born, it was rapid growth, and it first came out masculine, and then it changed into feminine. And I remember that I was really baffled about that, because it wasn't twins, and it grew up very fast before my eyes, and it was born masculine, but then turned into a female. And by the time it was done, the child had grown up so quickly before me, like right before my eyes, that she would have been as in a I don't know if you want to call 16, 17, 18-year-old. And I still had no idea what any of that was, but I do today. I know exactly what that was. And here today is the birthing process of my labor for 2.5 years to bring this to you guys today. And in the building of the masculine energy first, and then turning into the feminine energy, so that we build the form and then can fill it with the Shekinah, with the Shekinah glory. So pretty amazing. But with that, let's move on. Thank you for allowing me to share that. This is another very sacred moment for me, and I just got to breathe through it, because I just want to cry, but that isn't going to do any of us any good. So I'll do that later. Okay. So we have the Aleph on the form, on the board. I'm going to be going back and forth between the board and a document that I created. For some of you that haven't been with me, you know that I am doing something a little bit different. My intention was to do everything through PowerPoint presentations, and the Spirit said, stop, stop. It's like 150 to 180 hours for one PowerPoint presentation. It would have been taken like a whole nother year for me to probably get to the letters. And the Spirit said, it's time to go. It's time to do it now. It'll be a quick work. So we're going to go back and forth between document and the board. If you have questions, please write them down. I encourage all of you guys to have a pad and pen. I'm sure most of you are, and probably already do. But if you have questions, specifically write them down. And at certain points during the presentation, I will stop and ask you if you have any questions about what we have covered already. And if you want to hold them to the end, that is fine as well. But I encourage engagement. I encourage you to interact with Ken and I while we're here, interact with one another. So, because the whole process of mishpachah, which is the Hebrew word for family, is to draw the anointing out. Literally, the word Mashiach is contained within Mishpachah. And so as family here on Patreon, we are helping assist each other draw that anointing out. And that's what we're doing here. And so we're going to start with the language today, but just the presence and what you do, even with your questions. There is no stupid questions. Okay. So if you are very, very new to this, I mean, like brand spanking new, and you're just questioning some of the Christian narratives that we've been brought up in, this could probably feel a little sketchy and a little uneasy. If you have questions, none of them are stupid, and nobody is going to judge you here for those questions, because guaranteed, those of us who have been a little bit further along in the journey have had to wrestle all the same things.
Well, and we guard and protect that
What we do,
because this whole language is about restoring innocence.
it is. So please ask. Please ask and engage with us. I mean, otherwise it would just be pre-recorded messages, and I don't want to do that. I do want to make mention to you that after the first of the year, starting January 1st, for those of you who would like to have group tutoring, I am offering that on the Haikala level. Normally, when I do tutoring, it's $50 per session for an hour and a half on one-on-one, and I still offer that. I love to have people do one-on-one with me. It allows me to get to know them better. But to make it more cost effective for people, I really felt Spirit press upon me that I need to make this available as well. And so what we will be doing an hour and a half before our Saturday share time, starting in the beginning of January, the first Saturday after the first of the year, we will be doing group tutoring. Where we're going to start is with the Song of Solomon. For those of you who do not know what the theme of the Song of Solomon is, when you go into the sacred language, Solomon was writing about his own love journey within. There was no Shulamite. If you look at the etymology, you look at the words, it is him and himself, the masculine and the feminine energy that he was working through. And he wrote his story of that sacred wedding that took place within him in poetry. And I know there's been much that has been said about who the Shulamite was and whatnot. And I'm okay with other interpretations, but for what Ken and I have discovered in it, we saw it quite quickly. It was him writing his own love story in making love, because we have to learn what that looks like unconditionally. We come out of the womb and we learn conditions pretty quickly, but this is how we are able to make it into the unconditional state of absolute.
Yeah, it's his own constitution of resolve.
It is.
Through a narrative of poetry.